Hi guys, it's Joey, and this video is going to be entitled The Dark Goddess. And it's going to be a discussion in general terms and in slightly more specific terms of what constitutes a dark goddess. I can go into more specific examples of my own goddess, and the whole point of this video is to try and shine some light on this concept of a dark goddess and the negative connotations that people keep attaching to it and the misconceptions that people keep clinging to as if it's a good thing and it's not. And yeah, I've got notes and it all came flowing, so hopefully this video will follow that notion. So if I'm looking down, that's because I'm looking at my own written points that I want to get across. So what is a dark goddess? The new moon, the crone aspect, the great queen or warrior are often attributes, archetypes attached to a dark goddess. They are, however, not the be-all and end-all of what constitutes a dark goddess. You can worship a dark goddess, and I really dislike the term, and I will explain to you why. You can worship a dark goddess in all her aspects. She's part of every moon cycle. She is part of every part of the goddess. It's not just one aspect. It's not that one-dimensional. There are many goddesses across time and cultural denomination, usually, but not always, as part of a triple goddess, who are given the tag dark. Dark goddesses express the feminine energy, the power of the creative life force. They often represent the hidden mysteries and are only given a negative aspect in light of patriarchal societies demonizing them. This is why I dislike this whole notion of dark goddess, like it's a negative thing and it's like the absence of light. It's not, and it's so wrong. Patriarchal societies, by their very nature, are threatened by the notion of powerful women who would speak their mind and act of their own free will. The idea of a patriarchal society is that it is oppressing the power of women, often through religion, but not just through religion. But religion is one such way throughout time that has been twisted, utilised, turned into something it's not, to stop women from having equal status to men. You can see this in all sorts of arguments. If you go and read, I mentioned earlier in my other video, the whole point of women being able to vote. And if you go read some of the arguments against, from the time, from the Victorian periods, that women were somehow less intelligent than men, that women were less emotionally able to cope with the idea of voting than men. It's just all sorts of negative myths that somehow if women got the vote, the world would fall to chaos. The worship of a dark goddess, however, is not to believe in the power of one gender over another, but to understand the primal energy of such a goddess is actually embodying the masculine and feminine energies within the whole. Domination of either would be an imbalance that is just not found within divinity. That's found within human constructs, because humans are flawed. That's not found, however, within divinity, and it's not really found within nature. And in expressions of nature, there is masculine and feminine elements to everything. So I dislike the whole idea of them being called dark goddess, because it stems from this negative association, but demonizing of them in patriarchal societies. The goddess Lilith was demonized in the Bible because she wanted to go on top. She would not submit, and that is she was created, according to the Old Testament, equal. And because she was created equal, she was too willful, she wouldn't submit to Adam, she wouldn't be raped by him, and she got thrown out of Eden. So they created Eve out of the rib of Adam, and she was more compliant. The whole of the Morrigan myths have been interpreted by Christian monks who then put their own negative spin on things. I've mentioned this in other Morrigan videos. So the demonizing of a goddess into a dark goddess is something that I stand against. And just like I believe that the goddess embodies masculine and feminine, and you cannot separate the two, like it's all, at the end of the day, it's all one huge divine energy, and it's just how we interpret it. It's the same thing with light and dark. It is not boom, boom. It's like this. You cannot draw one from the other. Human nature, for some reason, is to stereotype, categorize, and demonize, and it's just wrong as far as I'm concerned. Dark goddesses often embody the literal dark, the nighttime, as well as the metaphysical dark, the unknown, the other world, that many being caretakers of the dead and destruction, and the spiritual dark, tests of shadow self. So first and foremost, many of them embody the literal dark, so they embody nighttime, like the goddess Nyx. And human beings have this sort of programming within the DNA, or I don't know if it's DNA or if it's learnt, but to be afraid of the nighttime, because that's when the big animals used to come out and cavemen turned and nom nom nom, So it was a sort of inbuilt reaction to be wary of the darkness, nighttime, and that was for safety, survival. And this has survived to this day. Horror films are generally set in the dark. There will be things creeping about, there will be shadows, it's lack of vision is something that frightens human beings an awful lot. They can't see what's coming. And that irrational fear is then tagged onto the idea of a dark goddess. They're often caretakers of the dead and destruction, and to fear death and destruction is fruitless. Neither of these things is evil, and both are inevitable, simply part of the great cycle. Life and death are inextricably connected, and as can be seen in the nature of the triple goddess. The maiden always follows and transforms from the crone. In time, she cycles around to mother, to crone, and back again, and life and death are just a cycle. And obviously, we're all, to some degree, afraid of death because we don't know what happens next, and that's a lot of what is spirituality and religion is about, reconciling ourselves with. I think that innate fear of death, and therefore attach all these negative connotations to dark goddesses, when really it's such a fruitless exercise. It's nothing to be afraid of, it's just a new cycle. It's just, anyone who's ever seen The Lion King should be able to grasp the whole point of the circle of life. You see all these representations of dark goddesses around skulls and death and blood and war, and people take those stereotypes, those images, and they sort of go Fruit Loopy with it. It's like, it doesn't make them some sort of evil caricature. It doesn't mean you cut a bit the English language. I have a sip of water. Excuse me. It doesn't mean that they are permanently wrathful. It doesn't mean they're negative like that. The goddess is a whole, not a thing. That's the easiest way I can think of. It's so tunnel vision to put these dark goddesses into the negative stereotypical box, and I'm going to use this goddess to get back at people, and it's just so wrong. It's just so wrong. The final realm is the spiritual darkness test of shadow self. With shadow self, It's often considered as negative because of the societal stereotypes we put on our shadow selves. Things we shouldn't be feeling, we shouldn't be aggressive, we shouldn't be this, we shouldn't be that. And it's like, well, you have to find a way of incorporating and working through your own issues. And quite often, people discover they are connected to dark goddesses through really awful life experiences, through trials, through hardships, because they come out. They search for help. They spiritually look for help. They need that extra guidance, and these dark goddesses are often connected to this because of the power that comes from overcoming such trials. I think that's a good point to go on to the thing. Dark goddesses are often those who test their followers time and again. This is their nature, because without trials we cannot overcome and we cannot evolve. There is no shame in failing any of these trials, as long as your will is not defeated and you press on in will, so that in time victory is assured. To be comfortable in your personal power is something taught by the dark goddesses, because you must hone and trust your own instincts. However, hubris, arrogance, and manipulation of others are symptoms of failure of will and abuse of personal power. Those who truly embrace a dark goddess would understand such pettiness is below the high moral guideline of any goddess, never mind a dark one. And therefore a supposed dark-natured goddess will let you know, quite wrathfully, if you engage in that sort of behaviour in her name. I wouldn't do it. They do demand our respect, because they deal in such absolutes of nature. There is a strong moral and ethical guideline that goes with working with them. For the Morrigan, it is honour and trust and truth. Is that enough? Honour and trust and truth? Okay. So honour and trust and truth. And going outside of those realms, like being manipulative, being aggressive. People think that war goddesses must mean that therefore you need to be aggressive. That's devolving. To attack another person for what? Why? In each person's life they will be tested time and time again. And in modern terms, I don't feel that the goddess Morrigan is just like this battle frenzy crazy goddess that people reckon she is. Wars in modern society are not the same as back then. The goddess has evolved. Evolution of dark goddess through time. Goddesses evolve the same as human beings. They are everything we are, and then everything again that we are yet and can never accomplish. They are a higher form of existence as we interpret that higher form of existence. In the very end, I discourage the very notion of calling my goddess dark. No goddess is dark or light, but the balance of both. You cannot yank threads from a tapestry and label them without distorting all knowledge. By doing so, you are both ignoring and destroying patterns in the weaving. I have never found the goddess Morrigan to be any less loving than any other goddess. More, personally, because she is my matron goddess. She is my connection. And quite often, all these aggressive representations of dark goddess do not allow for love, which is supposed to be and should be the primal reason for engaging with spiritual belief with our goddess. It's the understanding of balance, of love, of knowledge, of all those things. And I think, briefly, I have covered all the points I want to cover. I want, and I will, do a whole video on Bathe and the whole notion of death, the underworld, that death, destruction, cyclic nature, the Phantom Queen, basically, and the fear that is unnecessarily attached to these things, and the misinterpretations that are attached to that, because I feel that deserves its own video. There's a lot of information that can be pumped there, and I think to try and fit it in here with this general discussion of what a dark goddess is to sort of not give it the proper attention that it deserves. However, I did want to repeat some things. You know, it's the we should not keep catering in to these notions that a dark goddess is something to be feared. And the whole notion that we are dark and light on one path and not the other is wrong. It's a complete... You cannot be light, you cannot be dark, you have to walk your path, you have to be yourself, and you have to go about finding your own balance. There is no such thing. It's just human beings by nature are a mix, a messy mix of all of these things, and divinity are even more complicated versions. You can walk a negative path. You're going to destroy yourself eventually, and everything you once held dear. But that's not a dark path. The nighttime isn't negative, and neither are dark goddesses. I dislike the term because it's wrong as far as I'm concerned. They are light, they are dark, they are male, they are female, they are everything, and they embody so much more than these confining, constricting, simple, wrong interpretations. Because it allows for human, it allows people to go, oh well, that's evil, and it's like, it's not evil. And then you haven't got a leg to stand on if you've been going on that my goddess is like the killer of people. She likes to kill people, and then you're surprised that you think people think that is evil. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. If anybody has any questions on any specific realm, please leave me a message and I can elaborate. I will be doing a video on the Phantom Queen, probably not today. I've used up all my energy with these two videos today. They were quite emotional and time-consuming videos. This one particularly because I wanted to make sure I got everything written out, and I went into circle and I had her going, vroom. You gotta love her. And I do. Many blessings.